If that photograph gets out, your life is over. I heard those words less than 10 minutes before my face appeared on every screen in America. At the time, I was still holding a silver tray and wondering whether table 12 needed another glass of champagne. My name is Emily Carter, and before that night, the most dangerous thing in my life was being 3 days late on my rent. I was 26, working the evening shift at the Grand Mercer Hotel in Manhattan, saving every dollar I could for the small apartment I dreamed of buying someday. The gala was the kind of event where one watch cost more than my annual salary. Crystal chandeliers glowed above marble floors. Waiters moved silently between guests in designer suits and evening gowns. I had learned not to stare. That night, though, everyone seemed to be staring at one man. Vincent Hayes. I didn't know his name yet. I only knew that when he entered the ballroom, conversations softened. People moved aside without being asked. He wore a perfectly tailored black suit, no flashy jewelry, no visible expression, just a calm that somehow made the entire room feel smaller. I was carrying a tray past the private corridor when I heard voices. I stopped without meaning to. The board votes Friday, a man said. You don't have enough time. Then Vincent answered, quiet and controlled. I don't need time. I need the truth. I should have kept walking. Instead, I glanced toward the open doorway. Vincent stood beside a woman I recognized from television, a prominent senator whose face appeared in newspapers almost every morning. They weren't touching. They weren't smiling. But the expression on her face told me something serious was happening. Then she left. Vincent remained alone for a moment. His phone was on the table beside him. Mine buzzed in my pocket. I reached for it at the same instant he turned away. A guest bumped my shoulder. My tray tilted. I caught it, but one glass slipped onto the carpet. When I bent to retrieve it, I noticed the phone beside my hand. Black case. Silver edge. I picked it up, intending to return it immediately. The screen lit up. One photograph filled it. Vincent. The senator. And behind them, a document bearing a name I recognized, Hayes Holdings. I barely had time to process it before a camera flashed from the end of the corridor. I looked up. A stranger lowered his camera and disappeared into the crowd. Vincent turned toward me. His eyes met mine. For the first time that evening, his expression changed. Not anger. Not surprise. Fear. He crossed the room slowly. I held out the phone. I think you dropped this. He stopped in front of me and looked at the screen. Then he looked back at me. Where did you get that? Before I could answer, another flash exploded behind me. And this time, I heard the photographer whisper, "Got her. Got her." The photographer whispered it so quietly that I almost thought I had imagined him. Then the crowd swallowed him. I stood there with Vincent Hayes staring at me, his phone still glowing between us. For one strange second, neither of us moved. The ballroom continued around us. Glasses clinked. A string quartet played near the windows. People laughed beneath the chandeliers, completely unaware that my entire life had just tilted sideways. Give me the phone, Vincent said. His voice was calm, but something underneath it made my fingers tighten around the device. I was bringing it back. I know. He held out his hand. I gave it to him. He looked at the screen, then at the corridor where the photographer had disappeared. You need to leave. I blinked. Excuse me? Now. I still have 3 tables to serve. His eyes returned to mine. Emily. I froze. I had never told him my name. How do you know my name? For the first time, Vincent seemed almost humanly uncomfortable. Your name badge. I glanced down. Of course. Emily Carter. White letters against black fabric. I felt foolish, but the feeling vanished when my phone started vibrating in my pocket. Once. Twice. Then again. I pulled it out. A message from my manager. Come to the office. Now. My stomach tightened. I walked away from Vincent before I could think better of it. The manager's office was only 30 feet from the ballroom, but every step felt strangely heavy. Mr. Reynolds stood behind his desk with his arms crossed. On his computer screen was the photograph. My photograph. The picture showed me holding Vincent's phone. The angle made it look as if I had been meeting him secretly. My face was clear. His was even clearer. Where did this come from? I whispered. That is what I am asking you. I found his phone. You were alone with Vincent Hayes in a restricted corridor. For less than a minute. The internet does not care about minutes. He turned the screen toward me. The headline beneath the image made my throat go dry. Mystery woman linked to billionaire Vincent Hayes in private gala scandal. Billionaire. Scandal. Mystery woman. Me. I did not do anything, I said. Mr. Reynolds sighed. I believe you. That is not the problem. My phone vibrated again. This time it was an unknown number. I answered without thinking. No one spoke. I could hear faint traffic in the background. Then a man's voice said, "You should not have touched that phone." The call ended. My hands went cold. Mr. Reynolds watched my face change. What happened? Before I could answer, the office door opened. Vincent stood there. Two men waited several steps behind him, dressed in dark suits. He looked at me, then at the photograph on the computer. His expression hardened. Emily, you need to come with me. I shook my head. I do not even know you. He stepped closer, stopping several feet away. That is exactly why you are in danger. I am not going anywhere with you. His eyes held mine. Then listen carefully. By tomorrow morning, everyone in this city will think you are part of my life. He paused. And someone has already decided to make sure you never get the chance to explain otherwise. Someone has already decided to make sure you never get the chance to explain otherwise. Vincent's words followed me long after I left the manager's office. I should have walked away. I should have gone home, changed my phone number, and forgotten every second of that strange night. Instead, I stood beneath the hotel awning at 11:30 at night, watching rain turn the Manhattan sidewalk into a sheet of reflected gold. My apartment was 12 blocks away. Usually, I would have walked. That night, I was not sure I wanted to be alone. My phone buzzed again. Another message from the unknown number. Stop asking questions. I stared at it until the screen dimmed. Then a black sedan pulled up beside the curb. Vincent stepped out. No dramatic entrance. No raised voice. Just that same quiet presence that seemed to make the world around him slow down. I told you to leave with me, he said. And I told you I do not know you. You know enough to be afraid. I almost laughed. You have known me for less than an hour. That is true. He glanced at the rain. But I have spent years learning how people create scandals. That word stopped me. Scandal. Until then, I had been thinking about the photograph. One embarrassing picture. One ridiculous rumor. Something that would disappear in a few days. What exactly is happening? I asked. Vincent opened the rear door of the sedan but did not pressure me to get inside. Someone wants the public to believe I am involved in something I did not do. And I am supposed to be part of that story? You already are. He showed me his phone. The same photograph appeared on the screen, but there was something different. A second image had been posted beneath it. It showed me standing beside Vincent in the corridor, my hand near his phone. The caption claimed I had secretly delivered documents to him. I stared at the screen. That is not what happened. I know. Then tell everyone. Vincent looked at me for a long moment. That is the problem. He explained that the photograph was spreading through several news accounts at once. By morning, millions of people could see it. If he denied everything too quickly, the story would grow. If he stayed silent, the rumors would become accepted as fact. "So what do you want from me?" I asked. His answer came quietly. "I want you to tell the truth." I folded my arms. "You are a mafia boss, are you not?" The words escaped before I could stop them. For the first time, his expression changed. Not surprise. Recognition. "Who told you that?" "Nobody had to." I looked at the black sedan, the men waiting inside, the expensive suit, the way everyone at the gala had moved when he entered. "People talk." Vincent nodded once. "Then you know enough to understand why this is complicated." "And you expect me to trust you?" No, he looked directly into my eyes. "I expect you to trust what you saw." I remembered the photograph on his phone. The document. The senator. The warning. Then I remembered the unknown caller. My apartment suddenly felt very far away. I took one step toward the car. "Where are we going?" Vincent answered, "Somewhere we can talk without an audience." I hesitated. Then I heard a familiar sound behind me. A camera shutter. I turned. Across the street, beneath a black umbrella, someone was taking another photograph. This time, I was standing beside Vincent. "You have been photographed twice tonight," Vincent said. The next photograph could change everything. I stared across the rain-darkened street, trying to understand how a few careless seconds had turned into something I could no longer escape. The person beneath the black umbrella was already gone. Only a few drops of water remained on the sidewalk where they had stood. I looked at Vincent. "I am going home." "I understand." His answer surprised me. I expected another command. Instead, he stepped away from the car and gave me space. "But before you decide, there is something you need to see." He opened the rear door and waited. I hesitated for several seconds before getting inside. The leather seat was warm. The scent of coffee and rain filled the quiet cabin. Vincent sat across from me rather than beside me, leaving the space between us untouched. The sedan pulled away from the hotel. Manhattan passed outside the windows in streaks of yellow and white. For the first few minutes, neither of us spoke. Then Vincent placed his phone on the seat between us. "Your photograph has been shared by 43 accounts." My stomach tightened. 43? So far. He opened another screen. This time, I saw a series of messages between anonymous accounts. They were discussing me as if I were a character in a story they had already written. The mysterious woman. The secret relationship. The stolen documents. None of it was true. Who started this? I asked. That is what I am trying to find out. You have people for that. I do. He looked out the window. But whoever did this understands my people. The sentence made me uncomfortable. What does that mean? It means the person behind the scandal knows where I look first. They know what I would protect. They knew exactly where to place you. I looked down at my hands. Why me? Vincent was silent for a moment. Then he said, because you picked up my phone. That is all? No, his voice became quieter. Because you saw something on it. I remembered the photograph and the document. The document with Hayes Holdings. Vincent nodded. That document was never supposed to be on that phone. What was it? Evidence. The word hung in the car. I swallowed. Evidence of what? A financial scheme involving several companies and people who have been trying to gain control of my business. I stared at him. And the senator? She is being framed too. Suddenly, the photograph made sense. It was not a romance story. It was a carefully constructed lie. But then another question came to me. Why did you not tell the police? Vincent's expression changed. Because some of the people involved have enough influence to make the truth disappear. I looked through the window. We were approaching a large building overlooking Central Park. Where are we? My residence. I immediately reached for the door handle. You said somewhere we could talk. We can. He looked at me calmly. But you do not have to stay. I stopped. That answer was not what I expected from a man everyone described as controlling. I stepped out of the car. The building rose above me, all glass, stone, and warm light. Vincent followed several feet behind. Inside, the lobby was quiet. A doorman nodded respectfully as we entered. I looked at Vincent. You really are a mafia boss, aren't you? He paused beneath the golden light. Yes. Then he added, but tonight, Emily, I need you to decide whether you want to be a witness to the truth, or the face of a lie someone else created. You have a choice, Vincent said. Walk away now, or stay long enough to learn why someone chose you. I stood beneath the warm lights of his penthouse, staring at the man who had been a stranger to me less than 2 hours ago. Outside, rain slid down the floor-to-ceiling windows, turning Central Park into a blur of dark trees and silver reflections. I should have walked away. Every sensible part of me was telling me to leave. Instead, I asked, what happens if I stay? Vincent looked at me for several seconds. You hear everything I know. Then you decide what to do with it. He walked toward a long table near the windows and placed several printed pages on its surface. I followed cautiously. The first page showed the photograph from the gala. The second showed a list of companies. The third contained my name. I stopped breathing for a moment. Why is my name here? Because someone searched for you before tonight. My eyes moved across the page. Emily Carter. Age 26. Employment history. Apartment address. Even the name of the college where I had studied. How long have they been looking for me? At least 3 weeks. I looked up sharply. But I have never met you before tonight. I know. Vincent pulled out a chair and sat down. He did not ask me to sit. That is what makes this dangerous. I read the page again. 3 weeks. Someone had been watching my life before I had ever heard Vincent Hayes's name. Maybe they made a mistake. Maybe. He slid another photograph across the table. It showed my apartment building from across the street. My curtains were visible in one of the windows. My stomach dropped. When was this taken? 6 days ago. I stepped away from the table. Suddenly, my little apartment did not feel like home anymore. It felt like a place someone else had been studying. Why would anyone care about me? Vincent's voice softened. That is what I do not know. I looked at him. You said you were trying to protect your business. What does that have to do with me? He paused. Your father. The room seemed to become quieter. My father had been gone for 8 years. He had left behind unpaid bills, unanswered questions, and a family that had eventually stopped expecting him to come back. What about him? I asked. Vincent opened another folder. Your father worked for one of my companies. I stared at the papers. That is impossible. It happened before I took control. He turned one page toward me. There was a signature at the bottom. My father's signature. I recognized it immediately. My hands began to tremble. What did he do? Vincent answered carefully. He discovered something he was not supposed to discover. And then? He disappeared. I looked at the signature again. For years, I had believed my father simply abandoned us. Now a different possibility was sitting in front of me. Why did you never find me before? I asked. Vincent's expression became unreadable. Because I did not know you existed. A long silence followed. Then my phone buzzed on the table. A new message appeared from the same unknown number. This time there were only 6 words. Your father never told you the truth. I looked at Vincent. He was already reading it over my shoulder. Then his phone rang. He answered. He listened for 3 seconds. His face changed. What? I whispered. He ended the call and looked directly at me. Someone just accessed an old file connected to your father. Someone just accessed an old file connected to your father. Vincent's words seemed to echo through the room. I stared at him, unable to move. My father's name was on the table between us, surrounded by documents I had never seen and questions I had spent 8 years trying not to ask. Who accessed it? I whispered. Vincent picked up his phone again. I do not know yet. Then find out. The words came out sharper than I expected. Vincent looked at me for a moment, almost surprised. I will. He made another call, then walked toward the windows. I remained beside the table, staring at my father's signature. I remembered his handwriting on birthday cards. The way he used to write grocery lists in blue ink. The last note he had left on our kitchen counter simply said he would be back soon. He never came back. For years, I had believed that was the whole story. A man who walked away. A father who chose not to return. Now I was beginning to wonder whether I had been wrong all along. Vincent ended the call. The file was opened remotely from a secure system. What does that mean? It means someone knew exactly where to look. I folded my arms tightly. You keep saying someone. Who? I am trying to identify them. And while you are trying, what am I supposed to do? He turned toward me. Stay here tonight. I almost laughed. Absolutely not. Your apartment may no longer be private. You cannot decide where I live. I know. His voice remained calm. That is why I am asking. Something about that answer stopped me. He could have ordered me around. Instead, he waited. I looked toward the rain-covered windows. Just tonight. Vincent nodded. Just tonight. A few minutes later, a housekeeper brought me a cup of tea and showed me to a guest room. It was larger than my entire apartment. I placed my bag on the chair and sat on the edge of the bed. My hands still felt cold. I opened my phone and searched my father's name. Old articles appeared. Nothing unusual. A business profile. A photograph from a company dinner. Then one result caught my attention. It was an article I had never seen before. The headline mentioned a financial investigation involving Hayes Holdings 8 years earlier. I opened it. Most of the page had been removed. Only one sentence remained visible. A former employee, Daniel Carter, reportedly discovered irregularities before disappearing from public records. Daniel Carter. My father. I read the sentence again. My chest tightened. Then another message appeared. I stared at the screen. This is why he left. I immediately walked out of the room. Vincent was in the living room, standing beside the window with a cup of coffee in his hand. My father did not abandon us, I said. He slowly turned around. What did you find? I showed him the screen. He read the message. His expression became serious. Where did you get this? Someone sent it to me. Vincent looked at the number. It is the same one. What does that mean? He placed his coffee down. It means whoever contacted you tonight has been waiting for you to ask the right question. I felt a chill move through me. Which question? Vincent looked at my father's name on the screen. Why did Daniel Carter disappear? Why did Daniel Carter disappear? Vincent asked the question softly, but it landed harder than anything he had said all night. I looked at my father's name on my phone and felt 8 years of memories rearrange themselves in my mind. The kitchen counter where he had left that final note. My mother sitting at the table the next morning, staring at the empty chair. The months of unanswered calls. The explanations that eventually became silence. I thought he left us, I said. Vincent did not answer immediately. He walked to the table and opened the folder again. Your father was investigating irregular financial transfers inside Hayes Holdings, he said. He believed someone was moving money through companies that existed only on paper. I stared at him. Why would he investigate that? Because it was his job. Vincent turned a page. He was an accountant for one of our subsidiaries. He noticed numbers that did not make sense. And he told someone? He told the wrong person. My heart sank. Who? Vincent looked at the document for several seconds. A senior executive named Richard Cole. The name meant nothing to me. But Vincent's expression told me it meant something to him. Who is Richard Cole? I asked. He used to be one of my father's closest advisors. Today, he is a member of the board. I sat down slowly. So he is still working for Hayes Holdings? Yes. The room seemed suddenly colder. Then why has he never been questioned? Vincent leaned back against the table. Because there was never enough evidence. Until now. He looked at me. Perhaps. I opened the message again. This is why he left. What if my father is still alive? The words escaped before I could stop them. Vincent became very still. He did not tell me it was impossible. He did not tell me I was being irrational. Instead, he said, I have wondered the same thing. My breath caught. You have? 4 years. Then why did you never tell me? Vincent looked down at the papers. Because I had no proof. And because whoever was responsible made certain there was nothing to follow. I stood up. Then we find the proof. He studied me carefully. Emily, this is not a game. Neither was losing my father. Silence filled the room. Finally, Vincent nodded. There is one place we can start. He took a small key from his pocket and placed it on the table. Your father rented a storage unit in Brooklyn under another name. I stared at the key. You knew about this? I found the record 3 years ago. And you never opened it? The lease was protected by a legal restriction. I could not access it without the correct authorization. What authorization? Vincent looked directly at me. Your signature. The next morning, we drove across Manhattan before sunrise. The city was still quiet, streets shining from the night's rain. I watched the buildings pass through the car window, holding the key in my palm. I kept thinking about my father. About the possibility that somewhere inside a forgotten storage unit was the answer to the question that had haunted my family for 8 years. When we arrived in Brooklyn, Vincent stopped outside an old brick building. The manager met us at the entrance and checked the paperwork. Then he looked at me. Emily Carter? I nodded. He handed me a clipboard. My signature went onto the page. The storage door rolled upward. Dust floated through a narrow beam of morning light. Inside sat one wooden box. On top was a photograph of my father. And beneath it, written in his handwriting, were 4 words. Do not trust Vincent Hayes. Dad never warned me about Vincent Hayes. He warned me about trusting him. The words on the photograph made my hands go cold. I looked at Vincent, then back at the wooden box. He had not moved. His eyes were fixed on the message as if he had expected it. You knew, I whispered. You knew my father did not trust you. Vincent took a slow breath. I knew he was afraid of someone. That is not what the note says. No, his voice was quiet. It is not. I picked up the photograph. My father stood outside an office building, younger than I remembered him, wearing the navy suit he used to wear on important days. On the back, there was another sentence in his handwriting. If you are reading this, ask Vincent about the night of the 18th. I turned toward him. What happened on the 18th? Vincent looked away. For the first time since I had met him, he seemed unsure of what to say. 8 years ago, my father held a private meeting. With Daniel? Yes. And you were there? A long silence followed. I was nearby. My heart sank. You told me you did not know my father. I told you I did not know you. That is not the same thing. Vincent nodded. No. It is not. I stepped back from him. What happened that night? He looked toward the open storage unit. Your father came to my father with evidence that someone inside the company was moving money through false accounts. He believed Richard Cole was involved. And then? The meeting ended early. Why? Vincent's jaw tightened. Because my father received a message that changed everything. What message? That someone had discovered Daniel was investigating. I stared at him. And you did nothing? I was 26. I was not running the company. I did not know who to trust. His words did not make me feel better. But you knew my father was in trouble. Yes. The admission hurt more than I expected. I looked down at the box. Inside were several envelopes, an old flash drive, and a small notebook. I opened the notebook. Most of the pages were filled with numbers and company names. Then I saw one name repeated over and over. Richard Cole. Beneath it, my father had written a date. August 18th. Then another sentence. He knows about Emily. My breath caught. He knew about me. Vincent stepped closer, but stopped before reaching me. Apparently. My father knew someone might come after me. That is why he disappeared. I looked at him. You keep saying that like you know. Vincent's eyes met mine. Because I found one more record 3 years ago. He reached into his coat and removed a folded document. A private payment made under your father's name. It was sent 6 months after he disappeared. I stared at the paper. So he was alive. Vincent nodded. At least 6 months after the date everyone believed he vanished. The room seemed to tilt. My father had not simply walked away. Someone had hidden the truth. Someone had protected the secret for years. And now, for the first time, I had proof that my father might still be somewhere in the world. Then the flash drive on the table suddenly caught my attention. A small label was written across it in my father's handwriting. For Emily only. I reached for it. Vincent said nothing. I plugged it into my phone adapter and waited. One file appeared. No title. Just a date. August 18th. I opened it. My father's voice came through the tiny speaker, older and frightened. Emily, if you are hearing this, there is one thing you must understand. Vincent Hayes is not the person you think he is. I looked at Vincent. He closed his eyes. Then the recording continued. He is the reason I disappeared. He is the reason I disappeared. My father's voice stopped, and the room became completely silent. I stared at Vincent, waiting for him to deny it. He did not. The recording continued through the small speaker, my father speaking slowly, as if every word had been chosen carefully. Emily, I need you to listen until the end. Vincent Hayes was not the man who planned this. But he knew what was happening, and he made a choice. The recording crackled. I looked at Vincent. What choice? He lowered his eyes. I was trying to protect you. I shook my head. You did not even know me. Your father told me about you. My breath caught. When? The night he disappeared. The recording continued. If Vincent tells you that he was trying to protect me, believe him. But do not trust him completely. There is a difference. I closed my eyes for a moment. My father was leaving me a warning and a confession at the same time. Vincent remained silent until the recording ended. Then I looked at him. Tell me everything. He took a slow breath. Your father discovered that Richard Cole was using company accounts to move money through several shell companies. He planned to give the evidence to federal investigators. So why did he disappear? Because someone found out. Richard? We never proved it. And you? I asked. What did you do? Vincent looked toward the open storage unit. I helped your father leave. I stared at him. You helped him disappear? Yes. The answer was so simple that it almost made me angry. Why? Because he believed the people around my family could not be trusted. Including you? Vincent nodded. Especially me. I waited. My father had already decided that Daniel was a problem. I learned about it before they could confront him. I warned Daniel to leave the city. And then? He asked me to keep you safe. My voice became smaller. Did you? Vincent looked at me. I tried. For 8 years? From a distance. I stepped back. Suddenly, every detail of the last 2 nights felt different. He had known about my father. He had known about me. He had known there was a secret connected to Hayes Holdings. Yet he had waited until I accidentally walked into his world. Why bring me here now? I asked. Because the person who opened your father's file knew exactly where it was. They are searching for the same information. What information? Vincent reached into the box and picked up the notebook. He opened it to the final page. There was a list of names. Richard Cole was at the top. Beneath him were 4 others. At the bottom was one name I recognized immediately. Senator Rebecca Morgan, I whispered. Vincent nodded. The woman from the gala. She was involved? Not the way the photograph suggests. He turned the page. A handwritten note appeared underneath the names. Trust no one inside the board. I looked at Vincent. Then the scandal was never about us. No, it was about hiding this. Exactly. My phone vibrated. A new message appeared. Come to the gala tomorrow night. Bring Vincent. I looked up. They want us to go back. Vincent read the message and became very still. Then they just made their first mistake. Then they just made their first mistake. Vincent's words stayed with me as we drove back toward Manhattan. The rain had stopped, but the streets still reflected the city lights, bright lines stretching beneath the car. I held my father's notebook in my lap and kept rereading the names. Richard Cole. Rebecca Morgan. 3 others I did not recognize. Every name seemed connected to a story I had never been told. What happens tomorrow night? I asked. Vincent looked through the windshield. We go back to the gala. That sounds like exactly what they want. It is. Then why go? He glanced at me. Because they believe they still control the story. I looked down at the photograph from the first night. Me holding his phone. Vincent standing behind me. A perfect picture for a perfect lie. What if we change the story? I asked. For the first time, a faint smile touched his face. That is what I was hoping you would say. We spent the afternoon reviewing everything my father had left behind. There were dates, company names, account numbers, and notes written in the margins. Nothing looked important until Vincent placed the pages side by side. A pattern appeared. Every questionable transfer happened within 48 hours of a private board meeting. And every meeting had one name attached to it. Richard Cole. He has been doing this for years, I said. Yes. Then why has nobody stopped him? Vincent looked at me. Because he made sure everyone who questioned him looked unreliable. I remembered the photographs, the anonymous messages, the story being created around me. He's doing the same thing to me. Exactly. I looked at Vincent. So what do? We let him believe his plan is working. The idea made me uncomfortable. You want me to go back to that hotel and pretend everything is fine? Not pretend. He placed the original photograph on the table. We give them exactly what they expect to see. I understood. Another public appearance. Another photograph. Another rumor. Except this time, we would know the truth behind it. And Senator Morgan? I asked. She will be there. Can we trust her? Vincent shook his head. Not yet. That answer bothered me. Then who can we trust? He looked at me. Tonight, I do not know. The silence between us felt different now. Less like suspicion. More like two people standing on opposite sides of the same mystery. Later that evening, I returned to my apartment with Vincent's driver waiting nearby. I packed a small bag and looked around the room. Everything was exactly where I had left it. The same old lamp. The same kitchen table. The same framed photograph of my father. Yet nothing felt ordinary anymore. I picked up the photograph and noticed something I had never seen before. A tiny handwritten number was written on the back. 18. I called Vincent immediately. I found something. He arrived 20 minutes later. I showed him the number. He stared at it. 18. The night my father mentioned. He nodded slowly. Your father was not talking about August 18th. Then what was he talking about? Vincent looked at the photograph again. A room number. My heart skipped. Room 18? At the Grand Mercer. The same hotel where this entire nightmare had begun. The same gala. The same corridor. The same place where someone had taken the first photograph. I looked at Vincent. Someone wanted me to come back. He nodded. And tomorrow night, we find out why. Room 18. Vincent said the words quietly, but they changed the way I looked at the entire hotel. Tomorrow night was no longer about surviving another headline. It was about finding the truth my father had hidden 8 years ago. The next evening, I stood outside the Grand Mercer wearing a simple black dress I had bought that afternoon. Nothing extravagant. Nothing that made me feel like someone I was not. Vincent stood beside me in a dark suit, calm as ever, while cameras gathered across the street. Ready? He asked. I looked at the hotel entrance. No, he almost smiled. Good. Neither am I. We walked inside together. Instantly, the atmosphere changed. Conversation softened. Phones appeared. Cameras flashed. I could almost feel the rumor forming around us before anyone said a word. Vincent placed his hand lightly against my shoulder, guiding me through the lobby without rushing me. Remember, he whispered, we are here for room 18. I nodded. The ballroom looked almost exactly as it had 2 nights earlier. Crystal chandeliers. White tablecloths. Champagne glasses. Music floating through the room. But this time I noticed things I had missed. A security guard watching the hallway. A staff member checking his phone every few minutes. A familiar face near the private entrance. Richard Cole. He was older than Vincent, perhaps in his late 50s, with silver hair and the polished smile of a man who never seemed surprised. When his eyes met mine, his smile disappeared for half a second. Then it returned. Mr. Hayes, he said, approaching us. And you must be Emily Carter. I felt Vincent become still beside me. We have met, I said. Richard smiled. Of course. Under rather unfortunate circumstances. I have been told you knew my father. His expression changed slightly. Daniel was a talented man. You worked with him. Many years ago. And you know what happened to him? Richard looked at Vincent before answering. I know what everyone believed happened. His words were careful. Too careful. Before I could ask another question, Senator Rebecca Morgan approached. She looked at me first, then at Vincent. We need to talk. Vincent nodded. Privately. She glanced toward the hallway. Room 18. My heart skipped. Richard's expression changed again. He had heard her. Rebecca turned and walked away. Vincent looked at me. Stay close. We followed her through the corridor where I had first found his phone. The same marble floor. The same muted lights. The same feeling that I was walking toward a memory I had never lived. Room 18 was at the end of the hall. Rebecca opened the door. Inside was a small private conference room with a single table, several chairs, and an old wall clock. She closed the door behind us. "Your father came here 8 years ago," she said. I stared at her. Why? Because he believed someone inside Hayes Holdings was preparing to destroy the company from within. Vincent asked, "Who?" Rebecca looked directly at him. "Your father never trusted Richard Cole." My heart began pounding. Then she placed a small envelope on the table. "He gave me this the night he disappeared." I reached for it, but Rebecca stopped me. "He told me to give it to Emily Carter only if Vincent Hayes was standing beside her." I looked at Vincent. He looked just as confused as I was. Rebecca released the envelope. I opened it slowly. Inside was a single photograph. My father stood beside a man whose face I did not recognize. On the back, in my father's handwriting, were 6 words. "The man beside me is still alive. The man beside me is still alive." I read the sentence twice, but the words refused to make sense. My father had disappeared 8 years ago. If the man in the photograph was still alive, then who was he? And why had my father hidden his identity? I looked at Rebecca Morgan. "Who is this?" She shook her head. "Your father never told me his name." Vincent stepped closer to the photograph. His eyes narrowed as he studied the man's face. "I have seen him before." My heart tightened. "Where?" "At my father's office. Years ago." Rebecca looked at him. "Then you know who he is." Vincent shook his head. "I know the face. Not the name." I turned the photograph over again. There was nothing else. No date. No location. Just my father's handwriting. "Why would he leave this for me?" I asked. Rebecca answered quietly. "Because he believed you would eventually find the truth." The room fell silent. Then someone knocked on the door. Once. Twice. Rebecca looked toward Vincent. We were not expecting anyone. Vincent walked to the door but did not open it. "Who is it?" A familiar voice answered from the other side. "Richard Cole." My stomach tightened. Rebecca stepped back. Vincent looked at me. "Stay here." Richard knocked again. "Vincent, we need to discuss what happened tonight." Vincent opened the door halfway. Richard stood in the hallway with the same polished expression he had worn downstairs. "I saw you come in," he said. "I thought we should talk." Vincent kept the door between them. "About what?" Richard glanced past him and saw me holding the photograph. For the first time, his confidence disappeared. "Where did you get that?" I looked at Vincent. Then I looked back at Richard. "My father left it for me." Richard's face went completely still. "Daniel left you that?" "Yes." He took a slow breath. "Then you need to understand something. Your father was not the victim in this story." My heart sank. "What does that mean?" Richard looked at Vincent. "You should ask him." Then he walked away. I turned toward Vincent. "What did he mean?" Vincent closed the door. "I do not know." "You recognized the man in the photograph." "I recognized his face." "And Richard clearly knows more than he is saying." Vincent nodded. "Yes." I looked down at the photograph again. Something about the man's expression bothered me. Not because he looked dangerous. Because he looked familiar. I moved closer to the table and studied the image under the light. Then I noticed a small reflection in the window behind him. A second person stood in the background. Only part of the face was visible. I froze. "Vincent." He came beside me. "What?" I pointed at the reflection. He leaned closer. The room became silent. "That is my father," he whispered. I looked at him. "Your father was there?" Vincent nodded slowly. "Yes." Rebecca stepped toward us. Then the photograph was not just proof that Daniel was alive. She looked at Vincent. It was proof that both families were connected. My phone vibrated. A message appeared from the unknown number. "You have found the wrong man." Then another message arrived. "Look at the person behind him. Look at the person behind him." I stared at the photograph until my eyes adjusted to the reflection in the window. The face was only partly visible, but I knew it. Richard Cole. My father had been standing beside a stranger, while Vincent's father and Richard watched from the background. The photograph was not just a memory. It was a map. 8 years of unanswered questions suddenly seemed connected by a single thread. Vincent took the photograph from my hand. "This changes everything." Rebecca nodded. "Then we need to move carefully." I looked at Vincent. "You said your father did not trust Richard." "I said my father knew something was wrong." "That is not the same thing." He looked at me. "No. It is not." For the first time, I realized that Vincent had been carrying his own unanswered questions for years. He had not simply been protecting me. He had been searching for the same truth. Rebecca opened her purse and removed a small envelope. "Your father gave me this after the meeting." Inside was a handwritten letter. I recognized his writing immediately. "Emily, if this reaches you, then the story they told you was never the truth. I did not leave because I wanted to. I left because staying would have put you in the middle of something you were too young to understand. There are people who will use my name to control Vincent, and people who will use Vincent to control you. Do not let either side choose your future." My eyes filled with tears. I kept reading. "The person you need to find is not Richard Cole. He is only the man who knows where the evidence is hidden. The person who created this entire arrangement sits closer to power than you think." I lowered the letter. "Who?" Rebecca looked at Vincent. Vincent looked at the photograph. Then the hotel lights flickered across the glass. A new message appeared on my phone. "You were never the target, Emily." Vincent was. I looked at him. "Why would someone use me to get to you?" He answered quietly. "Because they knew I would protect you." The truth landed differently this time. The scandal had not been an accident. My appearance at the gala had not been random. Someone had known about my father. Someone had known Vincent would react. Someone had built an entire story around one photograph because they understood exactly how Vincent would respond. "Then what do we do now?" I asked. Vincent looked at me, but he did not give an order. He waited. I understood the question. He was letting me choose. I looked at the photograph one last time. My father had left me a trail. Vincent had followed it for years. And now I had to decide whether I would follow it too. "We tell the truth," I said. Vincent nodded. The next morning, the scandal was everywhere. Headlines appeared across television screens and phones. But this time, we had evidence. Financial records. Photographs. My father's letter. The storage file. And the names of everyone connected to the hidden accounts. Vincent arranged a press conference, but when the cameras turned toward him, he stepped aside. He looked at me. "This is your story." I walked toward the microphones. For 8 years, people had told me my father abandoned us. For 2 days, strangers had told the world I was part of a scandal. Now I finally had the chance to speak for myself. I told them about the photograph. I told them about the missing records. I told them about the evidence my father had left behind. I did not accuse anyone without proof. I did not ask anyone to believe me. I simply told the truth. When I finished, the room was silent. Vincent stood several feet behind me, giving me the space to own my story. Later, as we walked outside, I looked at him. You could have controlled that entire press conference. He smiled faintly. I could have. But you did not. No, he looked at me. You taught me something. What? Protection does not mean deciding for someone. Sometimes it means standing beside them while they choose for themselves. I looked toward the morning sunlight spreading across Manhattan. The scandal had brought us together through a lie. The truth had given us something neither of us expected. A choice. And for the first time, it was ours.